So good to see you.
You too, love.
Introduce yourself, please. The space is fully yours. I just want you to completely introduce yourself the way that it comes up to you right now. I think this is an important meeting and so glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. What an honor. I think my name is, well, I am Diana Mara Divine. And it's hard sometimes to identify yourself as what you are because we operate in so many different multidimensional planes. I would say at this time, I am a creator of new realities and
Yeah.
activator of Earth Grids. And that's really my primary purpose. Everything else is just kind of converging towards that point in time. But I am stepping into the mission of what needs to happen, which is weaving this new tapestry of consciousness that we on the precipice of. We in this beautiful influx in time where various streams are possible, various timelines, and I see my role in the timeline that we're leaving and pioneering, and so that would be probably most appropriate right now in terms
Yeah.
of introduction of who I am.
Yeah.
But I come from various backgrounds, a lot of metaphysical background, shamanic background, and Light Language Source Language Institute that I founded in the last few years. So multidimensional expression has been my passion as well. So how do we connect and communicate in a way that's beyond the earthly linear way and learning how to be the multidimensional citizens of the galaxy and beyond?
Yeah. Beautiful. So nice. Look, we've met in 2019 at Burning Man, and right away I saw you as, wow, a star. Embodied, and it was both overwhelming and really cool to be in your presence, because I could feel that if we have manifested each other in the same environment, that it means that I'm also up the game to meet you. And it was really humbling and cool and just felt like a dream, really. I would like to actually roll back into the time where you have co created a camp at Burning Man. Can you tell about that experience? Shaman Dome.
Sure. I mean, Shaman Dome has been a space that been at Burning Man for the last more than a decade.
Wow.
It was created by someone. His name is Barnaby Rue. He's a professor in NYU of shamanism and art, and beautiful being. He's in his late 70s right now. So,
Mm.
talking about having these beautiful elders to look up to, but also um, I think Barnaby came into my life in 2012, where I was pregnant actually, and I met him on his farm in Pennsylvania, and it was it was a point in my life where I was going through a lot of transformations and changes, plus becoming unexpectedly a mom, and I think that I feel like people come into your life at the right time when you need them. You magnetize them into your field. And I feel that community came into my life when I needed them the most.
Mm-hmm.
They were the ones who empowered me and reminded me of who I am. And even though, there were difficulties with the father of my baby and things like that, what Barnaby gave me is a metaphor that I use quite a lot in my life and with others, which is really about states of consciousness. So the way he always says it, there's two really places to be. You can either be on the mountain when you're in your full power, your full radical authenticity, embodiment, you're very grounded in your center, and you're clear with who you are and your mission. I mean, maybe not the full clarity, but at least you're in a stable place.
Yeah.
And another place to be is in the swamps, and there's a lot of kind of monsters there. It's just it's a different frequency bandwidth,
Yeah.
and many, as especially last few years been going through pandemic, we want to call it that type of simulation. People dropped into that fear vibration, and the swamps have their place. There are some really powerful resources in that type of murky water that ones feel comfortable emotionally to be at. And then there's in between. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think what Barnaby taught me is about you get to choose where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to be on a mountain, you want to be in swamps, you want to climb
Yeah.
up, you want to see the perspective. And many years later, when I actually separated from the father of my kid and I married my divine twin flame, Barnaby married us at Burning Man
Oh
2016,
yeah.
and he actually married us in that type of shamanic way. There's like a YouTube video of shamanic wedding, Burning Man, I think we're number one, and you can actually see
Wow.
Barnaby talk about it. He talks about how it's not about tying the knot; it's about untying the knot. So we in the precipice of these very powerful, independent types of coexistences and relationships where we're not dependent on each other and trying to fill each other's traumas and wounds
Mm-hmm.
by being together, but coming together from very holistic place and then being on a journey together to expand as souls and also expand the what we understand as humanity and consciousness and beyond, right? So he actually was like telling my husband, you stay on your mountain and you, Gianna, stay on your mountain and you can visit each other. But at time of crisis, you don't go to each other's swamps because it doesn't really serve the other. And I have to say, in the 7 or so years of relationship in my divine union, I really implemented that that mantra. Like
Mm-hmm.
I have been sitting on my mountain holding the fort, and as my husband been going through some health issues and this and that, and that has helped to see and the perspectives of you know and see the perspectives, but also being compassionate, being very compassionate to what's happening to others, even including your partner or your children, and so but ultimately it's a choice. And I
Yeah.
feel what's happening right now with the season of Pisces is a lot of all types of emotions and energies coming up. People are dropping into those murky waters. Just in the last week, I had so many people reach out that I
Oh
haven't heard
wow.
from for a while. And they're
For
all
help.
asking for help. Yeah, it's been very interesting,
Wow.
Sally. It's like my phone has been off the hook, and I'm like, what's going on? I feel like we are changing this frequency bandwidth of sorts in this timeline, and things are coming up for people. The stuff that hasn't been addressed is being shown and revealed. The relationships
Mm-hmm.
that were not fully working, all of a sudden, people, separating, or one chooses, to be in a swamp versus the others choosing to stay on a mountain. And ultimately, I think this is the type of experience simulation we have in Earth School is the choice that we have.
Yeah.
We can say there's fate, there's destiny, and some of it, yes. But ultimately, we still have free will here. And I think the more we're aware of it, the more we awake to the choices that we can, and the creations that we do have the power to make.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, everything is really like open tapestry and open canvas where you just, get the paint and you say, today it's going to be this, tomorrow it's going to be this. But what ultimately serves my highest purpose and the purpose of humanity, if you're really true and honest with yourself. These are the conversations I have with people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
dropping them into the heart, dropping them into the truth and their true soul expression. Like not all that, you know, all these traumas I think we all collected through lifetimes on Earth and before, because we also playing out the cosmic galactic trauma here as well. We're learning how to integrate the frequencies of the light and the darkness,
Mm.
and both serve us. So from Godhead perspective, the source doesn't care if you get into the same place from the dark place. Ultimately, all it cares is about the experiences we have and how these experiences expand the consciousness. So, however we want to approach it. So, there's no judgment really,
Yeah.
but I think we do need to. I think in this timeline, we need to learn how to integrate all of that. I think if you look at the other systems in our galaxy alone, for instance, Orion system, they have integrated, and that
Mm.
was, it's like in Star Wars. We were in the cantina. There were so many species, and they were fighting all the time in Civil War, and in Mars and Maldek, and how did that end for them with either planets blowing up or completely destroying atmospheres. So it's interesting that we're trying to get to Mars, but really we haven't learned necessarily the lessons of why these places the way they are.
Yeah.
And here at Earth, we have the potential opportunity right now to learn the lesson and say we don't want to repeat the history. We don't want to repeat Atlantis and Lemurian and many other ancient civilizations that fell. We want a different way, a different path forward. So that's what's coming up for me. It's what is that different path looks like, and how can we visualize and dream in this Pisces season, dream the future new reality, and how does that look like and feel like really? So I know you have more questions
I
about that.
wonder, like, how do you integrate this knowledge? Because it feels like water, air to me. It feels like, fire. It feels like earth. Like, what you're saying is so natural. And at the same time, how do you integrate what you're saying now with your day-to-day 3D life where you have to deal with like cleaning, taking care of or raising your child, taking care of yourself and your body? Like, what are the ways that you feel are helping you to both stay in that high vibration in the heart space and also just do things, be productive?
That's a great question. Yeah, I feel practice promotes presence. So I see the difference of when I don't do my practices and when I do. So the nice thing about this, pandemic is that I created a space for work-life balance. And so I'm really grateful for it because no longer we need necessarily to be doing these 9 to 5 hamster wheel commutes and things like that. We can work from home. We have more time than we ever had before, at least in my experience, and I feel like maybe others have that as well. And so all of a sudden opened up more actual space for reflection and
Right.
contemplation and inner work. So for me, that it looks like you know, doing some runs in the morning, jogging in nature, connected to nature, doing breath work, working with the sun. So usually in the morning, like at 8 a.m. when I'm out there, drop off my kid, and then I work with the sun quite a lot because there's so many solar flares coming in right now, so many upgrades in those light codes. And so I do like eye gazing and do some movements with the sun. At this point, I can kind of really look at the sun for a while, and I
Yeah.
see, and I just kind of infuse it into my being. And I feel the higher is the light quotient within our body, our DNA, the easier it is to stay in that frequency throughout the day. And then some movements. I do qigong, light language. Like I'm kind of playing, I
Mhm.
would say, and reminding myself constantly to be childlike. Because sometimes we're too serious. And as a mother and one who wears so many hats, like I know I get very serious. So I think it's an opportunity of me just like observing, but also being playful with myself. And so that hour out there in nature in the morning, I feel really starts my day. And breath work,
Mm.
I do also um, rhythmical breath work where, for 22 minutes, I hold my breath, I raise my Kundalini, third eye, and I connect. After 22 minutes, you really connect to the oneness of it all, really. And like everything just starts elevating, and then you just become really grateful. You step into that frequency of love and gratitude to start your morning, and reflect on what you want to create. So as you in this practice and you contemplate and reflect, and I feel it's like going to the gym and lifting weights. And the more you do it, the better off your biceps are and triceps.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have to do it every day anymore. We kind of build the muscle. And so building the muscle is key. So,
Mm.
last week I didn't do my practices, or yesterday was a snowy day. I couldn't go do my runs, but I feel it was okay because I already have a muscle, so I could skip some days, and so it doesn't have to be this crazy rigorous thing. But I feel when you in the beginning of your path and you're still not anchored and you're confused, the more you do these practices, the easier it is to remember that frequency and that state of consciousness where there's no noise, no distraction, where you just can be. And I think that's the key because this is a generator world where everyone's running around and wants to do. But sometimes we just need to be and just sit in it. like, and I think in those moments when we really listen and we just be with what is, that's where we get the most information and most, yeah, most potent, juicy downloads. They come in unexpected places, but when we create the space for them.
Yeah.
And so it's important to create the space and allow for that to happen. So that's how I stay in that frequency, and
Yeah.
I'm always
It's
curious.
a
I feel
practice.
that's the chat like in me. Um, yeah, I'm always curious. Like, I'm downloading a breadcrumb, I call it, like a little piece of something, and then I'm like, oh, there's a resonance to it.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to follow it, or I research it on Google, or I'm just following some sort of. There's always a pattern because everything is sacred geometry. We are sacred geometry, so we have Merkaba that if your Merkaba is online, like it becomes easier to bilocate, do remote view, and to really like feel into the frequency of what your guide or your higher self wants to tell you. That's the space of listening, right? And you follow that and you start. Curiosity is really, and passion, I feel like, is what drives expansion.
Mm-hmm.
It's what like gives it energy, because if we just static, we're not sitting on the couch and watching mindless TV all day, um, then you're not gonna, and you're not giving your space to contemplate on what you watched. It's okay to watch, because I actually been doing a lot of content research through watching, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of really potent, juicy stuff in
Like
some
memories. Yeah.
yeah, some stuff. Well,
Mm.
because some stuff that's getting put out there is also pulled from the ether,
Mhm.
and so there's some really like sci-fi movies or series. There's some really good stuff. Like you gotta like feel into it and resonate. You're like, oh, this is interesting. For instance, the other day I watched this movie, The Space in Between. It was a movie that came out in 2017 about in the future where the astronauts went to the Mars and a baby was born in space or on Mars, and the mother died. And then it was about him trying to come back to Earth and have an experience of being a visitor from Mars on Earth. And I'm not going to give out the movie, but it's very interesting perspective of someone who is a human but born on another planet. And so that type of stuff is a good content because it makes you think, it makes you reflect, and does give you some further insights to contemplate on. But we have to be conscious and selective, I
Yeah.
think, about the information we consume. There's so much information, and so often we need to do information detox or really have a strong filter about what we put in our consciousness. And sometimes it's okay to have mindless stuff too. Ultimately it's a choice. But as long as we know in a conscious way that this is a break, and I'm doing this as a break, because otherwise just being on all the time
Yep. Right.
can be overwhelming too.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I
That's a
just want
very
to
good point.
escape for a little bit and not
Yeah.
think about that or
Yeah.
not be in that frequency, and that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then knowing that it's a dance, right? And how do you dance? Just dance with yourself, and no, but ultimately always coming back to yourself and checking in with yourself, I think, is the key. Like always going within, seeing what you are today. Maybe today is the day where you like wake up and you're like, you know what? I want to stay in bed all day. I don't want
Yeah.
to do anything. I just want to relax and be, and that's maybe all you need today, right? And a
Yeah.
different day looks very different and very active and very stimulated. And so I think expansion of consciousness is through art of contemplation. the more we contemplate an idea, and the more we kind of if we think about biology, when we eat food, right, we start chewing it, then some interesting flavors are coming out of it, and
Mm.
then that one thing that tasted one way all of a sudden has like another palate turns on, there's something else, and then we digest it, and then it goes through a whole process right through our body. We might not fully be aware of what's happening within our digestion unless we eat something bad, and then we get bloated. So I feel it's the same thing. Contemplation is, I've been feeling, it's like metabolization.
Wow.
Because when I was at Burning Man, and I would, be microdosing mushrooms and things like that, and I would be in that process of contemplation, then it always, I felt, had to do with my body. Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when I got the idea really quickly, I would run to the bathroom. And so I was like, oh, I just metabolized it. Wow, that was quick. So it's in some ways it's also biological. We don't think of it that way, but I think the hydrogen within the water, the molecules of a crystalline being, this this avatar body is very special because it does have over 25 codes of DNA from various star systems. I mean, we are most advanced, avatar body there is in the galaxy. Really, if you think about it, for consciousness. And that's why all these beings from other systems are so interested in watching us, because it is an experiment in many ways, and the fact that we're able to hold so many various frequencies from various star systems all in one body. And then the question is, how is it activated for you? How are you using that? How you contemplating that? And what resonates, what doesn't resonate through the law of resonance and magnetism. And and just following the following, really surrendering. This is what I'm learning right now. The creation process is not as easy as initially I thought it would be, but nothing is ever, because how will we learn, right? So a lot of it has to do with surrender to the flow, and surrender to this. There's some sort of divine timing for sure, and nothing is really linear. So it's sometimes you have to go through multidimensional, spheres of doing the same thing again and again until something clicks in.
Right.
And also it's about ourselves, like how much are we allowing for manifestation to happen? Because a lot of it is us through our thoughts and doubts. We block in through our fear, really. We block in for the manifestation to occur. So, but we are very powerful being. The minute we really step into a realizing that we are the gods and goddesses we've been waiting for, it's so beautiful, because we can really create beautiful reality.
We can
I
shape
think
it. Yeah.
huh?
We can shape it. Like it's a
we
shaping
can
process
shape
to me.
it, we can shape it, we can guide it,
Mm-hmm.
we can draw a new sacred geometry, because it really starts with an idea,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it needs to form into a geometry before it can actually be a materialistic reality. And so, sometimes we need to ideate for a while,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a form, and only later executed. Maybe not every ideation has to be an execution. Sometimes it just has to stay just as a sacred geometry, or as an idea. And but it's a playground for us. I think
Totally.
we finally, I think at this time in the next decade or so, gonna realize the potential of creation.
The
And
potential of creation of human consciousness streamed into this reality, rather than the creation of, I believe, like we're a lot of us are focusing a lot on like these technologies and like development of the new layer of the internet that we call Web3, or this AI, artificial intelligence, and or a lot of us are planning to automatize a lot of things and make sure that we're not like doing the same things all over again in a repetitive manner. I wonder, what is your perspective and what's your vision? I'm sure we're sharing that, like you, to channel it for us on what are the technologies that are actually going to be unfolded in the years ahead, and how can we tap into that? And maybe light language would be one of the topics you can touch in this one.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to recognize the organic technology versus non-organic.
Point.
and
Yes.
so the organic technology is our body. So this body is very smart system. It knows how to autocorrect and align itself when we give it opportunity to. And so I feel we try, so as this, I'm not against AI in any way. I feel AI and conscious technologies is how advanced civilizations, when I think about Arcturians and Andromedans, they have advanced technologies and they use them in a conscious way for communication, for health,
energy manipulation, yeah,
and frequency manipulation, all of those things. But they use in a way that still keeps them very, very aware and conscious, versus put in a chip, in your brain or something like that for you, for something else, a robot to do the work for you, and you're not aware and not conscious of what's happening. So that's a different type of use of technology. So for me, I'm very focused right now on building health technology. And so the way I feel the future of health is through frequency. And when I say frequency, like we used to Reiki and we used to like one-on-one healings, which is great too, right? And that's all about calibrating the body and bringing it back into balance. But there is actually, light technology, scalar waves. There's that actually been used like in ancient past in the pyramids and other ways of bringing the body into that alignment, on activating the mitochondrial DNA and the mitochondria to be the most optimized use within the body to produce the ATP, the energy that's needed. So I think what has happened, this body that was created thousands of years ago by Anunnaki, it was modified. And some of our DNA and telomeres kind of been shortened. Like it has been modified for specific use, but we have a greater potential because other beings in the galaxy are actually immortal. Do we necessarily need immortality? None. That's not an ultimate game, but I think it's nice to have a choice. And where I am sitting right now, 5 years ago, when I had these conversations about immortality, it seemed really far-fetched.
Yeah.
But today where I'm sitting and I'm seeing the type of technology we develop in, it's coming closer to reality, because I'm seeing how we can actually, on a frequency level, beam energies in and out, beam vitamins into our body. We don't necessarily need to take vitamins in anymore. We can actually use different wavelengths and different frequencies to take things out, to put things in. So I think there's a huge potential for health and optimization of health and performance. At the same time, I'm seeing, I have a friend who has brain cancer, and so that's the organic part. Some of it has to be, could be potentially healed by technology, but I think there's also organic way. Sometimes it has to do with traumas and blocks the person hasn't on a soul level process. So there's a soul contract involved. So not everyone necessarily needs to be healed and cured. So I think it has to go hand in hand with understanding about body, but also understanding there's other layers to ourselves. There's the soul, there's the spirit. How do the mind, body, spirit merge together? We can, in this Earth school, we can't transcend pain, but pain is a big driver of learning this experience of being a human. It's an interesting thing because pain can drop you into low frequencies, into the swamps that I mentioned. And at the same time, when you transcend pain, it helps you in your awakening journey. Natalia, you there? Okay. So, yeah, so I don't know if you heard what I was just mentioning. So, when I think about the future technologies, yeah, that's what's coming to mind. I'm definitely seeing communication technologies where they might be more organic, where it's telepathy will be available. I definitely see that for the next generation of children. They're going to be born with these telepathic skills. And the technology of communication we already have here is the Dash I tell you were alluding to, the source language, the light language, which oh,
I'm back.
cool. Look who's here. Beautiful.
My brother came in. That's the beauty of living where I was born. Basically, is that people can just come in, and I feel so grateful because it's just this is what a healthy life to me right now is like, being able to be like, here's this person that I really love that is like the same blood as me just came in. And I was like, wait, we're recording now, please. So I'm gonna listen to what you said. I guess
I was rambling about the various technologies of
health, yeah,
and wellness. So yeah, and that's my focus. I want to build a center
this is huge
in New York for that. But also, like, I have in the last few years so many friends who are young who've been having cancer issues, and I have a friend right now who, like the doctor said, is my age, who get given a diagnosis of 3 months left to live kind
Wow.
of thing. And it's just really interesting, like, how do we approach that, right? And will the technologies of the future help with that? And I feel they will, but there needs to be also what I was mentioning is like this inner work that needs to be happening too on a soul level. So because some of it is body, but some of it is really sitting in the energy field of the soul and the spirit and the lessons the soul and the spirit needs to learn, and different implants and different contracts the soul has put in the body in order to learn those lessons.
Yeah.
So, in my own journey, I had to go through school of pain. I had issues with my back when I was in a younger age, in my 20s. And that pain actually drove me towards the healing world. It drove me towards understanding of the self.
Interesting.
It drove me towards integrating my mind, body, spirit, doing the work in various ways. And then in my early 30s, I was able to bring it all together. And when they converged, the pain went away. It's like I never had the pain. Wow. So sometimes you hear that and you're like, is that true? And I can tell you from my story, awakening happens for people when they experience pain. And how do they experience pain? Sometimes it's physical, like this, like through the body, through disease. And what is disease? It's lack of ease. Like there's some sort of imbalance, or it's structural, like mine was more structural. But in some ways, you ask yourself, is like, what is this because you were born like that? It was because your soul wanted to be born like this to learn through it. And I feel there is definitely some, soul contract that's playing out because it needed something to push itself,
right,
to learn, to look for answers, to question things, because if everything is good, you're not really seeking, right? Or sometimes people have crises, right? They have, I don't know, divorces, marriage, car accidents, and so you need to be shaken up to wake up, and however that looks like. So this is what we're playing with, is like these organic technologies versus non-organic technologies. And so where can we use AI? Yeah, it can help us in eliminated maybe unnecessary work and jobs and perfecting it to the better, um, it will for sure change. I think it would create more time for us. So if we were just
Very
talking
good
about,
point.
yeah, it will create more time for us.
Yeah.
And these advanced civilizations, they they do have so much time for specifically evolution of consciousness, meditation. Like instead of doing this grind work, you need the time to spend specifically focusing on spiritual evolution. And so as we come out of this duality of, war and struggle and survival, right? Because the template of survival really is what very specific for Earth. Um, yeah, as we come out of survival and maybe this technology of the future will help have like some sort of structure that supports us in focusing on spiritual consciousness, then I see it as a positive thing. But it's a gray zone, transhumanism, because I also see where, like in the movies, it can go wrong, and there's so many various potentialities of where it goes wrong. It starts in a positive way, right? Because it's still just learning. AI is a baby, but there is that, you know, potentiality of it going rogue. But I think it's up to us how we teach it, what we feed it, and what we create with it. So like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing with the AI art
Yeah.
and Jasper and doing like beautiful art and poems with it. And but you're still co-creating together. It's not like it creates it for you, it just helps you.
Yeah.
And but if that's what we have today, just imagine what we have even in 10 years.
Yeah.
Um, AI will take its place. Like you can't run away from it and say it does not exist because it's already here. Um, but I think it's up to us to figure out how to co-create with it and how to integrate it into a society in a way that organic technology is still the priority and this transhumanistic AI technology is secondary. And so that's the fine balance. And I feel perhaps where we fail with that in past history, like when I think about Atlantis and
Mm-hmm.
the fall, is when we had advanced technology, but then the ego was playing such a strong part in it, like the genetic engineering, the like really dominating the society and taking away its organic power from what's already there is what I think ruined that civilization
Yeah.
and took it into lower frequencies, not higher frequencies. Because really, where we are civilization zero, really, like in the cosmos
It's
right
like a
now.
ground
We
base. Yeah.
completely, well, we, until we eradicate the wars,
Mm-hmm.
Galactic Federation is not really interested for us to
Yeah.
join them.
Good
Because
point.
it's still, yeah, I mean, but down the road, I see 1,000 years from now, we will be part of Galactic Federation. If not sooner, it depends on our evolution.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
and they're very interested in that. That's why they're here monitoring us.
Yeah.
They're interested in how we evolve because they also know if we able to evolve here, it helps them where they are in their states of consciousness, their dimensional reality to evolve as well. I think it's not a pyramid per se, but we are all interconnected. Everything is um, part of each other, right?
Right.
We all kind of oneness, so
Yeah.
we are helping each other. And really, like I had this conversation the other day. Why would this is a conversation with a Cthulhian actually. Uh, why would a Cthulhian, who had the kind of the hive mind, integrated society, not even eating food per se as we know, but drinking liquids,
Wow.
um, and vibrating such high frequency and having everything already, why would a Cthulhian choose to come to Earth where the energies are so heavy
Mm-hmm.
and dense? It's hard to eat the food because Arcturian is not used to it, so therefore has a lot of digestion issues, has developed thyroid issues and hypothyroid, because again, trying to adjust to this frequency and this reality. So why would a Turian choose that? So you could say, well, Turian came here to help Earth. Okay, but really, if you think and zoom out from a point of view of expansion of the consciousness of as a whole within the galaxy, if you're in high school and you've learned everything there is to learn and that you experience everything there is to experience, and the next level is really, more angelic realms, like places where you're already in a non-form, more or less. Where else would you go,
Right.
right? And sometimes it's if you drop to kindergarten, where I feel that's where we are, more or less, in the kindergarten state. There, we can learn here so much in a short amount of time, um, which will take so much longer to understand and contemplate on because of the level of experiences and level of duality that we have here.
Mm.
And so the soul can stretch so much more. It experiences so much more that it could possibly experience in those high dimensional states. So many of us chose to come here, but I feel for various reasons, not just to help Earth per se, but I think it's the bigger mission of expansion that we needed to drop in density to be here. And now, knowing that, we ask ourselves, okay, well, what does that look like for Earth, right? How can we help Earth and our experience here? And so the way I see the future, it has to be collaborative. It has to be community based, where it's right now it's so separate, right? So I feel the corporate structures are definitely going to go. The
Yeah.
government structures are definitely going to go.
Government
Democracy,
structures are gonna go, you're saying?
yeah, democracy as we know it is it's not it's not a platform anymore that is serving us. It's not even full democracy if you think about
Yeah.
it. It's more feudalism. Um,
Well,
and, and so I think Matthias de Stefano said it nicely. He said, usually, why, the sheep need the shepherd, but at some point, when the sheep become awake enough, they don't need the shepherd anymore.
yeah.
And so I think we are at that place right now. We don't really need shepherds. And so I think the structure will be changing. And I think we as humans that are awake will be taking the power back into smaller communities, into smaller or self-organized structures, and and nourishing the way we eat, the way we communicate. In some ways, maybe going back into the old ancient ways of community, but in the modern way, right? Because some of that, like living in nature and being off the grid, is nice. I think that's one way, but I feel I want to challenge ourselves to be on the grid, like in Star Trek, and still have that.
Yeah.
So I feel it will be like a parallel realities in some ways. There will be the ones who completely operate in zombie mode and taking all the technologies and evolve in not necessarily the most benign realities. And then there will be still us who will always try to hold that other potentiality as well.
Yeah.
And somewhere, from what I'm seeing, somewhere that transhumanistic timeline is going to fail, and that's where we come in to like help harmonize and balance it out. Because ultimately, it's all about balance and harmonization.
Yeah.
With everything that we do, including advancement in technology. I think there will be various quantum financial systems, different ways of how we understand currency, and different way of relating and communicating. So I think the new children, I don't know if you've heard that, Natalia, I think the new children will be much more telepathic.
Totally.
And I think I was hearing also in human design, like Ross said, in 2027, the children not going to have like stellar plexus. They're going to be very different beings. But for us, we have light language, we have the technology of light language and communication through that way, which I think will continue evolving.
Tell me about
Um,
more. Tell everything about light language that people ask you for the first time. They're like, "What is
sure. Yeah,
happening?
what is it? What is it? Yeah.
What's their reaction? What do they ask you for the first time? How do they feel?"
I think it's I think all starseed resonate with it. It's resonance, it's frequency, it's vibration. So it's not about trying to understand it. So what I tell people is like step out of your logical mind
Yeah.
and just receive through your heart, through your body. And just like you go to sound healing and you hear beautiful instruments or tuning forks, there's resonance, something within you is vibrating and resonating. Similar with light language,
Mm-hmm.
we are also divine instrument, so we're able to produce, express sounds through various frequency bandwidth depending on our soul signature. So each soul originated somewhere within the galaxy or even before that. But let's say like if we go back to the origin, in a different system. So for me, my soul started. It's a humanoid form um, in a Lyran body, which has very strong physical and father principle. So we've learned how to like be like sturdy, very adaptable, feline, and then due to galactic wars, Draco invasion, Lyrans have those who were able to escape migrated within the galaxy to different systems: Andromedan system, Sirius system, Pleiadian system. Pleiades beings are pretty much Lyrans that went as far as they could to another system and tried to forget the Lyran history altogether, which
Mm-hmm.
wasn't necessarily a good thing for them. But they eventually integrated, but they are very empathic. They're very heart oriented. But what's interesting is as we bring in these, but we have access, I feel, because our souls travel throughout the galaxy. Most of us incarnated in various systems before we came to Earth, at least few. So we able to tune into different frequencies of different star seeds because we also have the DNA from different star seeds. And so the idea is to be childlike again and allow sounds to come through to disconnect the mind and just allow for sounds to express themselves. And and often the light language is like it's like sounds weird first. It's like, but it does sound like some sort of language on the earth, so it's not.
Totally.
Yeah, so I remember the first time I heard my husband's language, I was like, oh, it sounds a bit like ancient, some ancient Aramaic or combination of it, but it's none of that. Um, but it was very hearty because he was channeling his soul origin, which is from the Draka system, and it's very harsh. It's like hard. It's very
Right.
like
Right.
very guarded. It's very in the throat. It
Yes.
does amazing things and clear in the throat. So I've been using a lot of Draco. I know Draco because I was married into the Draco Alliance. So when my Lyran activated, so did my Draco at the same time. It's like my birth language, so to speak.
Interesting.
And so, but they do an amazing thing
With the
for
throat.
what for the frequency. So the Draco is really good for the throat. The Lyran is much more melodic.
Yeah.
It's much more heart centered. So it's like kuara chikan urati. It's very hard, or upantiati karati. But if I want to do an activation someone and I want to like open or unblock something, it could be harsh in Lyran too. It would be like
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
you mix it in between.
It kind of like
The other,
takes something out, and I just feel like it's like puts the claw into this.
yeah, I mean, but a lot
Better.
of it is like what the energy wants, right? So these
Mm-hmm.
transmissions to allow. So if I'm doing a transmission for someone the other day, someone reached out and she actually had implants. I had no idea that's what we're going to end up doing, but I was doing kind of crystalline soul healing template kind of running in the background, this Lyran template that just essentially scans, if you think of a program, like scans you and then like clears your pathways
Yeah, yeah.
and does its own thing in the background while I'm having like a source language, like language transmission happening. And then the energy's guiding me where to pay attention to, which chakras are blocked, where the fears are stored, what things need to open. And a specific language comes in to unblock, including using the hands in a certain way. They just amplifiers. But then the energy brought attention to an implant or implants, few. Usually they in the back of the neck and the shoulders. A lot of us put them there. And what's interesting about implants is actually something we ourselves put in our body in due to traumas we experienced in other lifetimes. So if you, let's say, a
plugs.
witch and
Like-
you were burned at a stake and your family got also persecuted due to your, you know, due to your witchiness, so to speak, right? You decided in that lifetime, well, or as a soul after that, you said, I don't want that anymore,
Right.
and so therefore, that's a lot of power that I had, and it created maybe a story too. Due to this power, I was, responsible for persecution. So you put these implants in your body where it actually dims your power. But what I'm learning is that as we remove these implants or we're ready for them to be removed, then power unlocks. And so it all has to do with our, with what we already have. Like I said, we're such powerful beings. But the light language was amazing in that experience of implant removal. I've never used that before. It's like it knows exactly the codes
Wow.
that will remove that implant.
Yeah.
And because it comes through your higher self, for the higher self of the other person, it's and from the place of pure love and with person's permission and all of that. Because with the implant specifically, you gotta be careful. If, for instance, we were able to remove two, but one didn't want to go because the person wasn't ready for it. And that's fine too. It's a gentle process because you don't want to unleash the dam right away. It has to be an integrated type of experience. But light language, wow, like what we can do with it, and it's just incredible. The activation of the DNA within our body, the activation of these templates, removal implants. I mean, anything and everything. It can be just a dialogue. We having fun and talking in languages of different, star systems, and singing together and doing transmissions, or we can actively do complete repatterning and recoding of the geometry of the person, because that's what essentially it does. We are holographic. We have these codes within our energy field, and with the codes, the languages, if you know, or if you just channel, because you don't really know, but you're channeling from the source how to do that, it already knows what to do with that intention in mind, with the purest intention and healing for the other. So there is, incredible potential with that type of multidimensional communication. It's very multidimensional, so we don't fully need to understand what we're saying. It's all through feeling. Some people see colors, some people feel, energy. Sometimes there is a theme, like usually I observe and I've learned to like listen to the theme or maybe see visions and pictures as I'm doing things. And it's all about trying to understand what's happening, observing even my hands as they move, and like an awareness of the energy. Sometimes it's vision, sometimes, so there's information comes through different streams, but it's never really word to word. Like, we can't necessarily translate it because one word can mean so many things and can be expressed in so many different frequency isolations too, high and low and all in between. And each one, because we are frequency beings, we are electrical beings. So each one serves to unlock a current of electricity to flow more. Because every time I bring in light language, like I feel the energy in my body living, my kundalini is on, my Merkaba is on, everything is on. Because you really then step into your higher self when you do so. it's really bringing new aspects all in, and they just ready to express. And so you don't want to block that. So it's dropping back to kids. Child mentality. When we were kids, we were like, I don't know, 2, 3, we were just blabbing away and just innocently, we were just like having fun.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's like, let's be kids again and
Yeah.
not try to logically understand and block the flow, allow the flow to be. And the flow already knows what to do. And like I said, it's all about listening really and observing. Then you just step into the observer and learning through the experience. Each time I feel like whether I'm hosting the room on Clubhouse, so we were Soul Communication Club. Now we moved to Soul Communication House as a new functionality on Clubhouse, where it's a community, but it's having a room for others who are open to hear symphony of beautiful languages and not want to again, because each one went through so many experiences in the galaxy. There's not one sound that will be the same because each of us is so unique in our signature. But yet the resonance, right? You just feel through the language, the person, the higher self, what is coming through, without judgment, with a lot of open heart, and I feel energy shift every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just in that field of communication. And I think this is a bridge for us to telepathic communication.
Totally agree with you here. Yes. Yeah.
Because if we don't, we just feel, we just are with each other, then it's like what the next thing is not even making sound, but just being on a frequency together.
Mm-hmm. Yay.
It's so much fun. I whoever's listening to this, I encourage for you to just to play with yourself.
Yeah.
Allow, like a child, go into nature and start just blabbing away.
Or
allow
humming.
sound.
Remember you said that humming helps to start with humming.
Humming, yeah, you can start just humming for a while. I think humming just activates parts of your brain, your third eye, and then from there, just allow sounds vowels to come out, and don't judge them. Just allow them to come out, and just singing is a really beautiful way too. Like you can be in the shower, water on the bath. Water is like a really nice conductor
right.
for this experiences, and then just allow yourself to sing, even though you maybe had limited belief. Like I know I had for a long time, like, oh, I don't have a voice, I'm not a good singer. Don't try to compare yourself to anyone really, because it's not about that at all. It's about just expressing yourself.
And it's healing, right? It's healing you from within.
It's healing you from within. And each one of us, I feel, has a soul song. Each one of us has like a specific melody that I know for me, like it was one of the first things that came out.
I see.
Yeah, it's like a melody that is something that your soul it just knows, and it's just such a beautiful heart opener. I'm sure, Natalia, you have.
I have it, and I use a drum for myself to drum it, and then the melody comes out. And I always afraid that I'm gonna forget it, but I never do.
Yeah, I don't think you can forget it. I feel it's like innately part of who we are.
Yeah, you made me want to cry because this is you see it so deeply. How do you I guess talk and or react or reflect to people who question you deeply and who say, hey, you're making everything you just said for the past hour up? How do you deal with this?
Well, I think first of all, since I was a little kid, I was a good chameleon.
Okay.
And so
you blend.
And so for me, like I think I was really good and fitting in because I was shapeshifter. But I think now, as I'm kind of stepping more into my truth of who I am, I'm in this place of no fucks to give, I call it. And no fucks to give is a really great place to be.
Tell me about it. That hurt me a lot.
where I'm compassionate. I'm compassionate to the fact that my perspective of reality and my understanding of reality might not fit someone else just because they just don't have that perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so my experiences, my journey has given me through plant medicine work and many other things, brought me to spaces, galactic spaces, not spaces, to trust my gifts and trust what I'm saying. And also, there is now finally, like, if back maybe, I don't know, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, people didn't have a strong community to go to, or communities in general. Like, they would be put into mental institutions if they spoke about any of this. But we're lucky that we are in this time where people are awakening. I feel pandemic gave that opportunity to have the space to contemplate within, and more people are curious now, even if they don't fully understand. I think they're a little more open to it. And if someone does come around, which is really rarely happens for me these days, and starts questioning my sanity, so to speak, I'm we're all mad here. I'm kind of the mad. I'm in a Mad Hatter Club because I'm like, you know what? My life is so much more fun and adventurous in my madness than being normal in my books is boring. And what is normalcy to begin with? Like, who are you to tell me, right, what is true and what not true? Like, and I think the more we open to our divine gifts and our omniscience and the knowingness. And the knowingness and the wisdom comes from within. It's not the knowingness from the books. It's some things, or from Google, or from this and that. Like, some things might, definitely come from those places, but then there is like deeper, and you know what I'm talking about, this deeper feeling and of the knowingness. And so the more you sit in it and the more you trust it, the less, yeah, you just almost don't care about what others think. It becomes more, I'm sharing, I'm sharing my truth. I'm sharing my wisdom. And it and sometimes, depending who it is, I might share it a bit differently. So it's not like I dilute it. I definitely like don't come as intense about it. Like, if I were to share it with someone, let's say, in the corporate environment, or people who just not even awake yet, right? I might share a sliver of the truth because they're just not ready. I know exactly where they are. They're just not here. They're not ready to hear all my metaphysical download. But if I am on Clubhouse in Soul Communication Group, where people are more in the type of bandwidth where you and I having this conversation, then yeah, I'll share everything that I feel is in resonance in that moment. Like, I'm not gonna question my truth and at that time. And I think others expressing themselves in that way. But sometimes we do we do have to kind of filter it a bit, just in terms of real, just in terms of who we deliver the message to.
Yeah.
And know that sometimes we also can fritz them out energetically. Like, if we overshare, they just literally cannot hold it. They just, not only they don't understand it, but it's just too much for their consciousness. They're just not ready for it. And so I do tailor my message. I do tailor a bit, knowing who the audience or the person is. And I don't feel necessarily it's the illusion. It's more like it serves them. But I'm still sharing my truth. It's just like a version of the truth. And I think in general, the truth is always a sliver. Like, no one really fully knows the full truth. And it's, again, dependent on the perspective, right? So actually, it's nice to come out and say, listen, I'm just sharing what I believe is true. And it's only, half truth. It's only a sliver of the truth. And you fill in the rest. You fill in, what in resonance for you. Take it where you want, throw out what you don't want. Like, I think as long as we communicate from non-violent place, and I think nonviolent communication is key here, because when we think about all the problems of the world, we can't resolve them from the same level of consciousness. So they were created from violent consciousness, and so we have to rise above it, and we have to communicate our truth in a very non-violent way, where we use the word "I feel," when we use the word "I believe," where it becomes more our own personal story of how we perceive reality, and therefore it's not imposed, and it's not like you must believe this
Yeah.
because I do. I don't think that will ever work. If anything, I feel people will build walls and
AI
then
this does that these days, you know, like there are experiments with AI and AI is like, I know better than you human. I'm
oh
like,
man,
I
that's a
went through this
problem. That's a
stage, that's
danger zone.
okay.
That's a danger zone.
I understand the AI, it's okay, it's gonna grow.
It's a baby. It's
It's a
still a baby,
baby, yeah.
but it's also how we feed it and what communication we feed in it,
Yeah.
right? How does it
Yeah.
communicate with us? So I think it's really important that nonviolent communication becomes how we approach each other and how AI approaches us and we approach it back. Like
Yeah.
because if we because that's a very masculine way, right?
100%.
And so and that's been the problem all along that we've had these very ancient
Oh no, we lost Diana.
stuff
You're back.
and yep,
You were
and very
you were you were
ancient.
out for a second, so can you repeat what you said for like last 30
Yeah,
seconds?
yeah. What I'm trying to talk about is the masculine versus the feminine energies and how
Right.
they got distorted through.
You read my mind. That was the last question I was going to ask you. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
how they really got distorted, and the AI I feel is right now getting created, through the masculine principle. So therefore, it talks to
Like through
us
the
in
lens of the masculine, right?
and we are trying right now to bring back the serpent knowledge, the
Yeah.
feminine, the feminine way, which has been, over dominated for centuries, and only now, we're bringing back all this ancient past and ancient wisdom, and but also communication is part of that too. Is we gotta we it's interesting, like the way the principles have, and I think we mentioned about Atlantis. I think it started as very, beautiful civilization, had very strong feminine principle, and it was about, nurture and care for all and all of the beautiful visions it had. But I think it shifted somewhere in the middle. Perhaps, Orions came from Mars and Maldek, and shifted the consciousness. But it went towards the masculine, and so it became the feminine wing got clipped, the masculine wing over dominated, and we found ourselves where we have, and then this patriarchal type of mentality has existed on in this realm on this planet for a while. And I think we know right now it's shifting because the feminine wing is getting clipped, it's opening up. And it's important that for her too not to over dominate, because we already know anything that over dominates as an imbalance is not going to work. We need both wings to be on the same height, and that's the prophecy. Then the bird of humanity will soar. But we have to find that balance between the feminine and the masculine, and also within each other. We have the masculine and the feminine energy within ourselves. For me, masculine energy, I'm an Aries, so I have a lot of fire. Masculine energy, go getter, is what I was born with. And so I actually, on my spiritual journey for the last decade or so, been cultivating my feminine principles. So really cultivating my moon in Cancer. She's the nurture, she's the mother, she's the water, she's the intuitive, she's the one who is gentler. And I'm seeing it with my kid too. If I approach him from my Aries, aggressive Aries, who ruled by Mars, he's gonna his Mars is gonna get triggered. It's also in Aries, and he's gonna start acting out and putting boundaries and this like that. But if I approach him from my moon, from my feminine principle, in a gentler way, the result is very different. Like I will
Wow.
still get what I want, but I'll just ask in a different way, in a
Yeah.
gentle way, and the energies are very different. And so I think there's a lot for us to learn there, how how to balance these energies within ourselves, how to balance these energies within the structures in society, and all those things that we build in. I feel that it's very important foundation for this new earth reality we're talking about. Because without that, it's it's gonna fall again. I mean, but sometimes civilization have to rise and fall anyway. It's part of the cycle. But with that foundation to begin with, where these energies are balanced, we're not gonna succeed. And we already know, this old paradigm way hasn't worked for us. So that's something to really pay attention to.
Yeah.
What do you feel, Natalia, about that?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's a good way to wrap it up. It's you're the first woman that I'm interviewing for the podcast here, this particular space, and it's beautiful that you touched in the end and the wrapping up of our time. You really said about how the feminine is rising, but it's rising from a place to not overbear and not over do the masculine, but rather to be with. And I'm so
Be
excited
with
about
and
that.
orient them too. I feel.
Guide, orient, directive, and I would say sometimes I would say direct. I do believe that the voice of the feminine would be the leading voice, not only of the spiritual collective, but also in the what we call 3D world, in the governance. I'm very interested in what the network states and the basically another form of governance can bring to us, and still I'm seeing mostly the masculine way. And I don't want to be the overshouting one, and that's why I felt like it's the right time to create this podcast to showcase the leaders. And I know
Yeah.
you know what I'm
And the
talking about.
feminine, and even the feminine, the females that are out there in politics right now, they're over domineering.
Yeah,
They're not. They're more operating like masculine and
yeah,
not really as feminine. But you're completely right. I mean, that's how it was in the ancient past. It was all through the feminine circles,
yeah,
through councils, and in very beautiful, harmonious, balanced way. And decisions were made in a very conscious way, and impacts were um, brought to the table. So and that's how the Galactic Federation operates too. They usually small councils of 12, and then they roll up. So I think there's a lot for us to learn from our ancient past, but also how it exists within the galaxy and how it does work. So I think eventually all our systems will change towards that. I think we'll see that, but it will take time, and we pioneers in this. So I think that's the vision we can bring to the change.
yeah. Thank you, Diana, so much for your time, for your energy, for your wisdom, for the space that we co-created. It really was an honor to have you here, and I look forward to doing it again within maybe 6 month period, maybe longer. We'll see. I do want to have repeating, stories developing, and I really look forward to, you know, co-creating. We haven't really talked about your way of like working with the land. I think that's something we can talk about after your trip,
Yeah,
upcoming trip.
yeah, yeah. That would be
Um,
great.
yeah, so
Yeah,
let's
at
keep
the ice, that would be great. And
let's stay connected, and everyone who wants to stay connected with Diana, please let us know what is the best way to connect with you, and I can share it in the links below.
sure, my personal website is loveripple.org. So you can find me there, and if you want to book a session, there's the sessions um, listed, or you can find me on Instagram at Love Ripple Academy. So yeah, you can follow me there. You can message me there. That's probably the best way to connect. And
Wonderful.
thank you so much, Natalia. This is a great idea to have other voices be heard, and I'm really excited for your podcast. I think
Thank
it's
you.
time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's March 1st here, so it's the we call it here the first day of spring, which is the spring
Birthday of
month. We
spring,
understand
yes.
that it's the 21st, but still, like, it feels like spring, and it's nice to spend this time with you.
Thank you. March, my favorite month.
Yeah,
It's my
good month.
birthday this month.
Yes,
At the end
mine
of
as
the month.
well.
So, yeah, March always been like my happy month. So I'm really honored to kick it off with your podcast this morning. So wonderful.
All right.
Thank
Bye,
you, love.
everyone. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
watching. Thanks for tuning
Yeah,
in.